So I'm going to be talking about two topics. One of them is humane killing and the other is unnecessary killings. Let's start with humane killing.
Okay.
What do you think about humane killing?
I wouldn't say it exists. I mean, I don't think humane killing exists. If you look at the definition of humane, I mean, it means to be benevolent, to show compassion, right? I don't know how you could be humane while committing killing, while taking someone's life away. I just don't see the connection of how that would work. And you look at footage of what they're going through, and automatically you put yourself in their position in a way. Or for me at least, I put myself in their position, or I try to as much as I can, but there's no way we can put ourselves in that position because it's unspeakable. It's hard to even imagine what they go through. And I know those words are said very commonly, like, oh, it's hard to imagine, but it's really hard to imagine what they go through. And I don't think to be able to, I don't think humanely killing someone, I just don't think that exists. I don't think that's possible, unless it's like, I feel like the only way it would work if it's if it's okay with the other person, if that makes sense. I think I don't know, but with animals, and I just don't think that's possible. Yeah.
So the definition of humane is basically showing consideration for humans or animals. And there's another definition of humane, which is, being kind.
Yeah.
And I do understand people have thresholds where they'll say this is kind, where I can consider it humane. But one of the definitions is showing consideration. For example, many of us euthanize dogs and cats. It's a mercy killing. And if someone decided to mercy kill the animal and they were slowly slitting the throat open, many of us would say that's not humane. You should do it more humanely. And do you feel like humane killing in that context would make sense?
So in the context of comparing the way a dog and the way a pig is killed, slowly, or can you explain it again? Sorry.
It's, for example, when we're killing our dogs and cats, back before they had all these putting the animals to sleep, people would basically shoot them, or they would just club them to death. They did different
most convenient. Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So do you understand that in that context, people will feel like this is a more humane way of killing your dogs or cats?
Right. So I think you can, if you're talking about levels of how humane something can be, right? If you're talking about how humane something can be, so something like, okay, this way is more humane than this way. Okay, let's try to do it that way. But it's at the end of the day, I feel like you said, taking consideration of another, like you said, an animal or a human. I think when you taking the life away when there's I know we're going to talk about it later, but no necessary reason, I don't see how that could be consideration whatsoever when there's no need for it. But again, you can challenge that, and I'm willing to listen to you. Yeah.
Okay, so would you be comfortable I also agree, I also feel uncomfortable when they use the word humane meat, because it almost makes it sound like, it's an acceptable level of cruelty. If they just said we're trying to make it more humane, relatively humane, it'd be easier for me to digest. But at least want you to understand that when people are trying to make humane meat, some of them, not all of them, some of them are just looking for the marketing, but some of them truly want the animals to suffer less.
Yeah, no, there's definitely companies out there that, they're doing their best with what they have. There's companies out there that have been brought up, or just that's kind of their basis, right? And they don't want to let it go because change is hard. And I see these companies, I'm sure, changing from whatever they're doing now to something completely different. I'm sure that would be so hard. And what I mean by that is going from humanely as humanely possible, killing an animal, and then going from that to completely switching what they sell and how they sell it. I agree. It's hard for these companies to, and it's hard on them because there's a lot of pressure, and there's people that want to buy more humane meats and more humane products. Definitely, I agree with you on that, and I think I think it's important. That's always progress. The fact that someone's even conscious about it is important. But yeah, I think there should always be an end goal, and I think the end goal should be the ultimate humane, if you would say, is just to leave them alone, to leave them be. And yeah, I think that's what I would say on that. Yeah.
Okay. I agree, and that would be the most humane thing. And I also do, I personally, do feel uncomfortable when they use that labels, because I feel it makes people think it's an acceptable level of humaneness, and I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I agree. It kind of paints this pretty picture in our heads. I was watching this video a few days ago by PETA. You guys can find it on Instagram. You just go to PETA's Instagram, and it was a video of the song "Old MacDonald Had a Farm," and they made the way they made the video. They changed it. They said Old MacDonald had a farm, and then they show the cow. Old MacDonald had a cow, and then they show the truth. They showed like how the cow gets killed, how the cow gets raised, and all these different things. And they go to a pig, and then they go move on to different animals. And I was just, it was creepy. It was very scary because it's the truth. The world is so fake nowadays that the truth actually bothers people. And I just thought that video was so impactful, and to me at least, because at the end of the video, so throughout the whole video, there's children singing, and there's children singing that song, and then they move into camera into the slaughterhouse, and there's a slaughterhouse, like a farmer or somebody. He's like singing, like having the kids sing the song. It's kind of like brainwashing. All it is it's all it is brainwashing, and it's kind of just teaching children that it's okay, when their natural instinct, many would argue, is that it's not okay. You have a child and you put him in a crib. I've heard this quote by, I think, Gary Yourofsky. You put a child in a crib and you give that, you put a baby in that crib, and you put a rabbit with him, and you put an apple, and like, which do you think the baby will eat, and which do you think the baby will play with? Do you think he's gonna play with the apple and eat the rabbit? No, of course not. He's gonna eat the apple and play with the rabbit. And I just think it's instinctual, it's intrinsic that us to show compassion, and yeah.
It is, especially if we help condition. There are many kids who are almost conditioned out of it, or never conditioned to feel compassion, because kids naturally are curious. I know when I was a child, I was plucking insects, hurting them, because I didn't feel for them, and no one taught me to feel for them.
Yeah, no, agreed. I used to do the same thing. There's so many things that I regret nowadays, like thinking back now. Like little things like that. Like I used to feed, it was crazy. I used to feed like ants to spiders. I was just so curious. I just didn't know. That's all it is. I just didn't know. I saw them more as like, I don't even know, like almost like not toys, but in a sense, something like that. Because I just didn't know. I was just so, I guess, young, and my parents didn't really teach me. They didn't really, because I would do it when like it was in the backyard, and they would, oh, he's just playing, but they didn't know what I was doing. And they caught on, and I remember they told me like that's not okay, mijo, like son, that's not okay, But yeah, it's something that has to be, it's something that's taught, but it's also something that's intrinsic in us. I think it goes both ways. Yeah.
So would you say that those who refer to some things as humane this, humane that, some people are just referring to the style of doing it, but some people want to think about the purpose also? For example, killing meat, we think there's no good purpose for it, so we don't want to call it humane. Yeah. But some people are only concerned about the style of doing something. They would use the term, this is more humane. Yeah,
no, I've heard that a lot, like this is more humane. And you're right, I think I agree with you that they're focused on the style of killing, the way they kill. Yeah, you can make it more humane. I mean, I would beg to differ, but at the same time, I could see where they're coming from. I could see their point of view 100%. It's more humane if you think about it only as in the style, but if you think about the whole picture, and you make sure that you imply that it's unnecessary, and if you put that into any context, and you can think of where something is unnecessary, but you're still doing it and it's causing harm to someone, yeah, of course you're gonna argue that, okay, that shouldn't be done. That if it's unnecessary, it shouldn't be done. And I think if you put it into the same context, and you see these animals as individuals that they are, and individuals that want to live, you see the same thing. If it's unnecessary, and it's been proven back and back again, and you start focusing more on whether it's necessary rather than just a style. I agree with you 100%. That's like, I've never even like thought about it that way, but that's a very good way to put it. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So next, let's talk about unnecessary killings. And usually I think most people argue when we don't define necessary for what, like necessary to thrive, necessary to survive. Yeah. If those things are implied, a lot more people might agree, yeah, it's not necessary for that, and then they'll qualify what they think something is necessary for. So when you say killing animals, pigs and cows for food is unnecessary. What do you mean by it?
So for me, it's basically like saying, like, will I be, in a sense, like, will I be okay without consuming anything that comes from an animal? And by okay, I guess you could even go even further. Will I be healthy? Will I, will I just healthy? Will I be happy? Will I be okay? Just, just different things like that. I think healthy is a good way to go by. Survival, will you be able to survive without consuming any animal products? And I think that's what I define as necessary. When I talk about necessary, is it a need? There's a big difference between want and need. You might want a car, but you don't need it. You might, and you could even put that into food. Like, you might want this burger, but you don't need it. You could eat a plant-based burger. And yeah, you might want the taste of an animal-based burger, but do you need it? You don't. So it's like, when you put that in, when you take into consideration the animal and just trying to imagine what they go through, it's very important to do that, because it makes you connect. It makes you connect to, look at your dog at home, and if you just try to put, because I have 2 dogs at home, and if I try to put them into that scenario, oh my, no, everybody just feels the same way. And when we see these animals here, it's the same thing. You can't, there's no need for them to go through this. So why are we going through that? I think it's important to ask that.
There are some people who would say that it's necessary for them to kill pigs and cows in order to have the taste that they grew used to. Like, they enjoy the taste, it makes them feel more comfortable. So in order to have those sensations that they're used to, it's necessary to kill them.
Right. So I think a good question that I've heard, this is a question that actually made me really think about what I was doing and where I was putting my money. Do your taste buds and the sensory pleasure of taste in your mouth or whatever, is that more important than the suffering of an animal? Is that more important than what the animal is going through? I think taking that into account and just really thinking about it, is it more important than my comfort? Because I believe that comfort is in most like, comfort is usually the enemy of progress. I think when you're comfortable, you're not really progressing. And if you're able to put yourself in discomfort and just try different things, you'll come to find that a lot of the foods that vegans or vegetarians eat, vegans primarily, they're delicious. They're actually very good. And you could check for yourself, of course, but I think it's important to make sure that you consider, you question yourself as to, okay, is the taste that I'm going through right now, the 15 minutes to the 5 minutes of a meal, is that more important than the life of an animal and what they're going through? Just try to imagine that. It's crazy, and then if you switch it around and you say like what if there was a more intelligent being than us, and they were doing that to us? How would you feel? Like, really put yourself into that context, and it's eye-opening. It's mind-opening. Yeah.
So here comes the difficult part. I completely agree with you. I think most meat eaters would find it's not that important. But here comes the difficult part. To make you realize we vegans tend to do the same stuff, and we have our own reasonings. There was one person I know, and it's also a viewpoint of several others, that when you have concrete, it doesn't make sense to step on the grass, trampling insects in order to enjoy the flowers. And so there are some people who say that we should not, as vegans, walk on the grass when there's a concrete option available to you.
Okay, so it was hard to hear you, but from what I got from it was that you're asking about, in a sense, you're asking about intentionality, right? Oh no, you're not. Oh, okay, sorry.
No, it's in the sense I'm pointing out that it's not necessary for us to smell the roses or the flowers. And when we do that, we will trample over some animals that may die. And yet, many of us choose to do it, even with the awareness that we may trample over them. So it's not a necessary killing, but we are okay with it, many of us. I don't know about you. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like you shouldn't do it, or are you okay doing that unnecessary act?
I would always say, like, yeah, if you can cause the least amount of suffering, because I think that not the definition, but in a way, like, what it means to be vegan is just causing the least amount of suffering. It's never, no one can be perfect. But I think at the end of the day, you have to strive to be as perfect as possible, right? You have to strive to be the best self and the best of who you are. And if that includes avoiding extra animals like that, right? Extra beings like that, and avoiding that, then yeah, I'm all for it. I think that's 100%. I think, again, strive to cause the least amount of harm as possible, and as also to be practical, because it's important to also think about intentionality and whether you're intentional about it. I don't agree that we should be doing these things, like you said, stepping over the grass or things like that. But it's important to think and compare about whether you're intentional about it. Because if you're just stepping over the grass and you're walking along the park, yeah, you don't intentionally do it. Yes, you do it. There's no doubt about it. You possibly do it. But yeah, you could go on the sidewalk and things like that. But I think at the end of the day, it's important to remember that our aim, or I think most of our aim, is to cause the least amount of suffering possible, cause the least amount of pain towards others possible. And if that includes what you just said, what you explained to me, then yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's 100%, yeah.
Okay. I would say it's possible, and those who think it's possible and think we should, they sometimes push us to go that extra step. And I would say I personally have a sense of entitlement to enjoy nature. And when it comes to nature, a lot of people put up with the cruelties of nature. And beyond that, I also know that there's something that's not part of nature, like driving in a car, smashing into insects in order to enjoy nature. And I can't justify it, but I'm still used to it. I don't want to give up on it. And in my subculture, it's okay to keep doing it, the vegan subculture. Again, it's like, there's all these little things that we do, or big things that we do in many cases that they're wrong. They cause suffering, they cause pain, and they cause the death of certain animals, in the animal kingdom. And again, I think it's important to remember that whether you're intentional about it, I think that's important, because whether you're intentional about it, we drive. I think overall, like the human species, it sounds very negative, but I think we're just kind of pests. We kind of take and take and take, and we're so accustomed to taking and taking and taking that we never realize like how much we're taking and how much damage we're doing. But I think that's a whole different discussion. But yeah, what you're talking about here, and just the car, I think again, it's about intentionality. When you're paying for someone's meal, when you're paying for your meal, right? If that meal contains anything with animal products, you're paying someone to kill someone for you. You're paying a worker to kill an animal for you, and I think that's intentional, because you're doing it. You're conscious about it. And I think you could be conscious about it in the sense of like driving your car, right? But again, that's what you kind of talk about. Is it practical? Is it like, in today's times, we're trying to be the best ourselves, and sometimes we have to drive. Like right here, I had to drive here, right? I had to drive here to be with these animals, bearing witness and doing the best I can. I had to drive to a vegan march. It was an animal rights march. I had to drive there, but there's always like, is it practical? Could I have walked there? Yeah, but that's a big step, right? And I think it's important that we will get to that big step. Like I said earlier, always have an end goal. I think that's important, yeah. So when it comes to words like practical, the definition is what's feasible. And a lot of stuff that we could do, we choose not to. And I think the word is more reasonable, which differs. Now the subculture, the vegan subculture, it's now reasonable to step on the grass. It's reasonable to even intentionally kill termites, even though termites are doing nothing other than recycling dead wood. It's like building a house out of ginger cookies and killing the kids who come to eat the gingerbread.
Yeah, no, I don't. That's interesting. I think it's good to go even like further, right? I think right now we're focused on a certain larger, because we're so, everybody here is in the trenches, right? In the trenches, if I could say that. Everybody's battling that first step, and there's little steps like these are always going to be in the future. They're always going to be, not always going to be, but they're going to be like it's the future. But we're talking about them now, and that means that it's coming. Little topics like these are important. But right now, of course, we're focused on this, and we're focused on even getting people thinking about it. But yeah, I think using reasonable is a good word to use instead of practical. It makes more sense. Yeah, is it reasonable to walk? From where I live to all the way to LA, is it reasonable to drive from where I live to here, Yeah, I think it's important.
I agree, and it's I also believe we should focus on these issues. I'm not going around trying to get people to stop stepping on them. I do mention it. I think it's important to mention it to get people thinking, especially vegans, because I'm really afraid when we use terms like practical, intention, cause, it's about consideration. The animal doesn't care whether you intend or not. It only knows it's being killed. And I think it's important for us to recognize that there'll always be a struggle between our values and what we can easily do and what's acceptable in our subculture. And we're always struggling with those things, and to be aware that it's always a struggle, and to not get complacent and just feel like, yeah, it's fine, insects getting smashed in the windshield. Because the way I see it, when they come out with a device that blows the insects so it doesn't smash into the windshield and it costs $100,000, the rich vegans will buy it. When it costs $500, most vegans will buy it. When it costs $10, the whole society will be buying it.
Yeah, no. Like you said, it's important that you even bring up these topics, because they are relevant. They are in connection to what we're aiming for, right? But yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think it's important to talk about this stuff, and like that's what you said costs and things like that. It's always a factor. You always have to consider it, and of course, it looks like it seems like it's in the future. And I really do think we're going to be continuing this topic, not just from animals that look like us, but even from animals that don't look like us, further from us, right? I think that's important too, because even now, it's funny. Like I don't even catch myself like considering the little bugs too. I'm like there's a little moth. Like I used to just kill them. I used to just ignorance. I just didn't know. I just didn't care. We were just so distracted by other things in life, sports, irrelevant things, that we forget that like these little animals, like they're here too. This is their planet too. This is their home, and we have who are we to take that from them? Like I said earlier, I think we're pests. I think we are very negative on the planet in many ways, and it's important because right now we're trying to change. We're trying to change that, and little steps like these, like you're asking me these questions, this is going to evolve into something bigger in the future, and we're all part of it. And people don't think like, oh, I can't make a difference, but you can. You can. Everybody. We look in history, and everybody makes a difference. Every person who started something, everything started with one. This right here, all these couple hundred people, I don't know how many people are here, but this all started with one person, and that's how it's gonna happen. It's over time. Yeah.
And another thing I would like to add is that in our subculture, when something's acceptable, even though we may recognize it's not the best, it's sometimes easier to go along with it. Just have some compassion to the meat eaters who may at some level recognize there's something uncomfortable about it, but for some reason they feel entitled or feel like it's easy, practical. Just have a little compassion, even as we try to talk them out of it. No,
I agree. I mean, I think we were all in the same boat. None of us here grew up. I certainly did not grow up vegan. I'm Mexican. I have so many. My culture is based around animals. I'm going to Mexico this Friday. I leave to Mexico, and I'm gonna be there for 9 days. And the culture over there is, meat. It's what it is. And I think it's important to consider people's culture and consider what they're so accustomed to, because I know that everything is kind of against you in a sense, because meat is convenient. Milk is tastes good with some snacks or whatever. Eggs are convenient. It's convenience, habit, all these different things. It's kind of all grouped together, and that's why it's like a big thing weighing us down. And what it takes is are you willing to, or are you willing to just make that effort? Because that's all it is. In any area of your life, a big change is going to require a lot of effort. And so for something like this, where a lot of things are against you, you're gonna struggle, and there's no doubt about it. I always say it's like going to a different country. You're learning a whole new culture. You're learning new foods, but it's important to remember you have so much support for you. The vegan community is so supportive. That's like the biggest, it's crazy. And so you have so much support. You have so much resources to use. Challenge22.com, everything. It's crazy. There's all these resources, and so yes, it's hard. But it's not as hard as we make it out to be. I thought it was one of the biggest challenges I was gonna go through, and I've been vegan almost a year now, and I'm fine. I'm doing great. I try not to make it as complicated. Whatever I used to eat, before I just changed it a little bit, you know. Regular cow's milk to vegan to almond milk, and then I would implement that into my foods, and it's a lot more easier than I thought. It's just like that giant leap that seem of decision making. That's what seems difficult, you know. Indecision is a decision. Inaction is an action, and I think it's important to remember that, yeah, you know, I know where people came from. We know where we were there too. We don't know everybody's story, but it's important to take into account and to be compassionate towards those that are even considering it, even thinking about it, like, oh man, you know, this does make sense. Maybe I should try it. Even that thought, I appreciate it so much, and I'm sure these animals in here appreciate it so much. Even though they don't know, if they did know, they would be so appreciative, because it's little things like that that start the train going. It's little things like that that start the progressive thinking, and you start questioning it more. Maybe you have a friend that's vegan or a vegetarian, you ask them questions. Hey, what made you go vegan or vegetarian? You know, it's important. I support people that even consider it, you know.
Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have any closing words you want to add?
I just, you know, there's so much support out there. I talk to as many people as I can about this, because it is an important issue. It's a lot bigger than I even imagined. I was never conscious about this. Like, I was never like, I remember I just started college a year ago. I have a friend who's vegan. I met her there. And you know, the thought of her being vegan to me, when she said that, I was like, wow, that's a lot, you know. That was my initial thought, but I was like, okay, that's cool, you know, moving on. But I never realized the environmental impact, you know, the health impact. My gosh, let alone the animals. It's a massive, massive, massive thing to learn about. And I encourage everyone to do your own research. And I did so much research on it. I consulted like different doctors, different dietitians. I just wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing, you know. And it's the best decision I've ever made. I always say, like, I wish I would have done it sooner. I really do. It's one of the best things. I know my little sister's here. My little sister's vegan with me. My little brother as well. And you know, I let them make the decision for themselves. I said, look, here's the information. Learn it if you'd like to. I really encourage you to look into it. It's very important. And then, you know what? You make the decision for yourself. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to provide the information, provide the questions for you, and you know what? It's up to you. You're old enough, and you're a smart kid, and you know, I love you. I appreciate you, and I hope that you. And you know what? They loved it, and they were as surprised. I think they were more surprised than me, because they were younger and they didn't even. I don't know. It was an awakening for us, and now we're all little bunch of vegan kids running around at our house. Yeah, and my parents are super supportive. I know most parents are not supportive, but all it takes is education. My dad was very hostile to it. My mom was a little more like, okay, I mean, you know, it's gonna be hard for her, because she was like, oh, it's gonna be hard for me because I have to cook different things. But you know, after a while, we started learning what to cook, and I educated them on it too. And although they're not vegan, they have definitely cut back. And again, I support them 100% because that's progress. Yeah, okay. Andres Perez. Thank you. Thank you so much. Great questions. Oh, great questions. It's good to think about that stuff.